And when it was one of the precious creations his friends had made, even Aints the undead felt guilty. He felt like he had to do something. But how would Aints, who never had any women as friends, and had never even dated a girl in the real world, be able to come up with the right thing to say? He wanted words that would comfort her. Fretting in an inward panic, he surveyed the area and tried to come up with a conversation topic. Then he noticed something and brought it up without thinking. "Look over there. Do you see those 4 blank spaces?" Confirming that she looked, he gave a simple explanation of why there weren't any statues there. "One of those is where my avatar will go." That would never happen. The one who had made all these statues was actually Aints, so even if he retired with no other guild members around, his avatar would never be placed there. When they retired, they told Aints, "Please put this stuff to good use." They handed over their gear and cash store items. In order to have those items equipped, and to remember the retired members, he used cash store items to create golems that could equip gear. That was also the reason the avatars looked so bad. Everyone's appearance data was left over from when Pandora's actor used it. Aints didn't have the skills to model them by himself, so he bought graphics and forced them onto the golems. The result was warped looks, straight out of a nightmare. The arms might be chubby or short. The head might be too big. Their lack of unity gave off a strange vibe, making any viewer intensely uncomfortable. That turned out to be an unexpected perk, considering Aints had also made them to stand as final gatekeepers. But it is kinda embarrassing, like being confronted with models I made as a kid. Another emotion assailed him, even more intensely than embarrassment: loneliness. Aints created the avatars as a place to store his friends' gear as they kept retiring. That's what he said to the remaining guild members when they asked, or that they were final guards. Really, though, the reason he started creating the avatars back when members were dwindling like teeth falling out of a comb was simply because he was sad that fewer and fewer of the friends he played with all that time remained. He created the avatars to indicate that he had friends in the great tomb of Nazareth. He also wanted to make up for their loss. That was why he named this place the Mausoleum. It used to be called the deepest part of the treasury, but Aints changed it. He changed it into a place to mourn the guildmates who left Yggdrasil, who vanished, a place for his friends to sleep. Still, having been flung to this unknown world, he wanted to believe that they could be out there somewhere. Aints was lost in thought when a sorrowful scream echoed down the entire corridor. "Don't say such horrible things." Aints' lonesome mood disappeared in an instant. When he hurriedly looked at Albedo, he was in for an even bigger surprise. Her eyes were so full of tears that if she blinked they would probably have run down her cheeks. Lord Aints, who mercifully stayed behind with us, Supreme One to whom we should all be devoted, please don't say things like that. I hope from the bottom of my heart that you will always be here to reign above us. She kneeled before him and prostrated herself. A repetition of I beg you mixed with sobs was like a prayer. It also sounded like a pained wail. Aints had never seen someone lose themselves to that extent. He felt guilty that his half-joking words had shaken her so much. He kneeled down and put his arms around her to help her up. "Forgive me." Hadn't he felt abandoned by his former guildmates? When he was all alone in the great tomb of Nazareth, he spent each day hopelessly because no one else was there. Hadn't he been lonely and furious? Despite knowing this hardship, how could he not have understood Albedo's feelings? How could he have caused her this pain? Albedo was sitting up. Her face was a mess of tears. She was still crying fresh ones. Aints took out a handkerchief. He wiped them away, albeit awkwardly. He tried to apologize again, but he couldn't get it out. He couldn't come up with the right words. It was because he never had many relationships. What can I say to stop her tears? He didn't know. Aints was still confused when Albedo, hiccuping, spoke. "Lord Aints, please promise me you won't abandon us and leave this land." Sorry, but he couldn't get further than but because he thought of something. But Albedo took his silence in a different way. Why not? You won't promise me. Do you want to leave us? Why? Does something displease you? If so, please tell me and I will eliminate it. If I bother you, say the word and I will kill myself. No. Aints raised his voice and Albedo's shoulders jumped. Listen to me. First off, there is practically no way to rescue Shaltia. The mind control is due to world item, and it is absolute. In order to not be affected by world items, you either have to possess a world item or have a certain class. Getting her tears wiped by Aints as if she were a child, Albedo hiccuped a question. That's why you came here, to get world items then? Yeah, to give them to the Guardians. Actually, there is a way to cancel the mind control Sholtia is under. It should be possible with a world item. I just hesitate to use the ones we have back here. I value items more than one of my subordinates. I am a wretched master, that is not true. The supreme beings worked hard to collect those world items. I think they are worth more than we are, my lord. You do. In the game, Aints would have thought the same thing, but a feeling had grown in him that wouldn't he let him think that way anymore. That said, realistically, he couldn't he use their last resort here. Among the balance-breaking world items was a group called the 20. These were capable of unprecedented feats beyond the realm of the others. One of the most famous of these was Longinus. If activated, it would completely delete the target, but it came with the price of wiping the user as well. Data deleted by Longinus was impossible to recover except via some other world item. Neither microtransactions nor resurrection magic would cover it. If used by a Nazaric NPC, it would cause the total amount of levels the headquarters was able to allocate to go down by the amount of his or her level. Aints could think of a few of the names of those insane items. Ahura Mazda had a powerful effect against targets with negative karma and could cover an entire world. Wu Xing controlling cycle allowed the user to demand that the company that made Yggdrasil change part of the magic system. Ouroboros let the user demand a change to a wider variety of things than Wu Xing controlling cycle. And the most powerful item, World Saver, usually had only as much attack power as a club, but it could have allowed a solo fighter to take out Nazaric even back when all the guild members were around. This was because it could grow limitlessly more powerful. These 20 were so immensely powerful that they would be lost after one use. That was why they were easy to use. Both of the 20 that Aints Ulgaun proudly possessed were to be brought out if their counterpart was used. They were most effective when neutralizing their opposing item. If those items simply disappeared, that would be fine. But what if after leaving their possession, they ended up in someone else's hands, perhaps in the hands of an enemy of Nazaric? Nazaric was protected by world items, so an attack wouldn't affect the interior. But if they were careful, they might find themselves under siege. That was why using a world item to save Sholtia wasn't an option. Albedo, I am grateful for what you've said. Let me tell you why I responded to your previous question with silence. Aints took a deep breath and then exhaled a vestige of his living self. He knew the weight of the words about to come. I intend to fight Sholtia alone. I don't know if I'll make it back. I know you're going to fight Sholtia. It would be stupid to just leave her like that. Aints nodded in agreement. Exactly. It wasn't clear why the enemy hadn't given Sholtia any orders yet, but things would get hairy once she did. It was possible that everything about Nazaric would leak. But why do you need to fight her on your own? Why not crush her with numbers? Aren't we of any use to you? Aints dabbed at the tears forming again in her eyes and said, Of course, Albedo, I believe in you. But there are 3 reasons. One is that I don't know if I am really cut out to be everyone's master. How could you think such a thing, Lord Aints? He put up a hand to interrupt her. If we think level-headedly about the possibility of other players being here, then we have to also consider that there could be world items as well. Is there any value in having an idiot like me rule? Lord Aints, your very presence here is valuable to us. And we will help you, even if we can't do much. I thank you. But the one who is most to blame in this case is definitely me. If Longinus was really in this world, it was possible for one of the Guardians to be wiped out to save the life of one villager. Sholtia being mind-controlled was a horrible situation, but in a way it was good luck. They'd been made aware of the danger. So you mean to make up for it by fighting her alone? Who would punish our highest ruler? That's not all though. Here's reason number 2, Sholtia is out there by herself. There's a good chance it's a trap, a fatal one. Albedo made a puzzled face, but Aints continued. When Aints Ulgaun would go PKing, we used a similar tactic to the setup Sholtia is in right now. We use guild members as bait and then attack and kill whoever bit. Of course, there was a high risk the DKs would die as well, but we definitely killed the guys who showed up to attack. But then, Lord Aints, well, hold on. I'm not finished yet. Do you know what we were most afraid of when setting traps like that? He waited for her lack of response before revealing the answer. We feared the enemy attacking in numbers fewer than that of the DK group. If they came in small numbers, we had to be on the lookout for an ambush. In other words, we had to be careful not to get trapped ourselves. Upon confirming in Albedo's bloodshot eyes that she understood, Aints mimed a sigh. Phew. And the last reason is I am going to kill her. If that's the case, then I'll go. I have a world item, so I am the most appropriate for the job. You think you have a chance of winning? Tell me straight which one you think has the higher probability. Under Aints' quiet gaze, Albedo bit her lip and looked down, frustrated. Albedo, you ray right. Sholtia is strong. Sholtia Bloodfallen was the strongest guardian in the great tomb of Nazarick. Albedo couldn't know. None of the other level 100 NPCs could win in a fight against her. That's why it has to be me. I am the only one in Nazarick who can beat her in a one-on-one fight. Well, certainly considering your gear, you might be able to win. Aints was fully outfitted in god gear and had cash store items. Sholtia's only god item was the Pipette Lance. He had the overwhelming advantage when it came to gear. But there was still a reason Aints' chances of winning were low, reflected in Albedo's vague reply. Sholtia Bloodfallen was Aints' Ulgaun's natural enemy. Since Aints had been role-playing as an undead caster, his build used classes focused on ghost magic. In other words, he was built for fun. Sholtia, on the other hand, was a hardcore build. She was also a faith-type magic caster. She had several spells that were effective against undead, in addition to being great at melee combat. As if that weren't a big enough gap already, being undead meant the ghost magic that was Aints' specialty wouldn't be very effective on her. So Aints' strength was meaningless, and Sholtia could fight with an advantage against undead. Then there were Aints' various items. If he didn't prepare for the possibility of them being stolen, he didn't have much of a chance fighting her head-on. One wrong step and maybe he had none at all. You probably want to say I am at more of a disadvantage, right? Albedo looked down. Right, Aints felt the same way. There's no way I can win against Sholtia. But I'll show you that you don't call me Nazarick's highest ruler for nothing. You ray right, but you ray also wrong. You have only the knowledge you were given. What does that mean? Have you accumulated experience? Experience? Her face went beet red in an instant. Yeah, combat experience. Oh, that's what you mean. Yes, I am fully capable of using all the powers within me as bestowed by the supreme beings, so I think I have enough experience. Aints shook his head in response. He learned his lesson in the fight with Clementine. No. Using your power and experiencing something is different. Do you know what happened to Sholtia's memories of fighting against players in that huge raid on Nazarick? I never heard the details, but it seems like she has a faint memory of being killed. And besides that, Albedo shook her head. My fellow guild members always dealt with solo raiders directly. I guess now we were lucky we were so stingy. I have the experience, so I should go. I have the best chance of winning. Aints grinned, though his face didn't move. It was almost as if that dazzling smile of the absolute ruler reached her. Somehow she blushed, like a little girl standing in front of a man she admired. Aints spoke to someone who was not present. I am the guild master of Aints Ulgaun, and my PvP record has more wins than losses. I've even won against people who built flawless characters. How could I lose to someone who relied on skill only? Most important of all, I was good friends with Peror and Sino. The battle is over before it begins. Sholtia, Lord Aints, I won't try to stop you anymore. Just please promise me that you'll return. Aints looked at her silently and then slowly nodded. I promise. I'll defeat Sholtia and return to this place. A green world stretched out before him. Aints surveyed the scene and chuckled at himself for making sure no one was around first thing after teleporting. If there had been someone he needed to be wary of, they probably wouldn't have given him time to look before attacking. He teleported to a little over a mile away from Sholtia's position as a precaution. He was keeping an eye on her with magic, but that still wasn't proof that the people in possession of the world item that was mind controlling Sholtia weren't nearby. It appeared, however, that he'd been worried for nothing. He turned with a weight off his shoulder to Aura and Mare, who had accompanied him. This is where we part ways, he told the two of them. They were the only ones he'd allowed to accompany him before the fierce fight began. He'd cancelled the orders of most of those who had been working outside and had them retreat into Nazarick. The only other members of Nazarick who were currently outside were Sebas and Solution. He had selected Aura and Mare because he'd thought of a plan to take advantage of human emotion. Humans might kill grotesques like Demiurge or Cocytus, but they would hesitate to kill a child. Of course, there was a chance their opponent would deal with them brutally, but he still wanted some backup with him in case of an unforeseen incident. It might have been a bad move, though. Aints looked at the two differently shaped and colored gauntlets Mare was wearing. The one on his right seemed modeled on the hand of an angel with its smooth make. It sparkled silvery white. The left one, however, was like a demon. It sprouted thorns and claws. Red sparkles poured from a rift that was reminiscent of hardened lava. Then he turned his gaze to Aura and the large scroll hanging off her hip. If the enemy outnumbers or even matches you in numbers, retreat immediately to Nazarick. Understood, Aura said. She bowed her head with a hard expression on her face. Mare hurriedly followed. Got it, you have to retreat. That's part of my plan too. And I've given you some of Nazarick's precious treasures. You can let them get stolen. Know that in some instances, they might be considered more valuable than your lives. Aints pushed his point. Aura's slightly delayed response had made him anxious. Ignoring their orders out of devotion to him could wreck everything. Hearing their acknowledgements, one spirited, one nervous, he cocked his head in his mind. I wonder which I really value more. He wasn't going to use a world item to save Sholtia. Judging just from that, he believed the items to be of greater importance. But as he had said to Albedo in the treasury, those were their last resort. They could turn the tables in any situation. Never mind if there was no way to save her. Since there might be a way, it was wiser to not use a world item. So putting aside all that, which was more valuable, the NPCs, loyal retainers created by his friends that now moved as intelligent beings, or the world items, proof of the guild Aints Ulgaun's adventures that elevated them to the highest ranks back in Yggdrasil, where things were a game. Aints racked his brain, but was puzzled at himself when the answer didn't come. Before he came to this world, he had a definitive declaration, but now he couldn't say it. His guildmates obsessing over settings and backstories created these NPCs with all their myriad emotions. He was about to kill what amounted to a child right now. Peroncino's daughter. Aints' heart was uneasy. He felt an emotion that could be called guilt. But Aints glared with penetrating eyes in the direction Sholtia probably was. This is the only way. This is the only way to break the world item's mind control. The tough words that slipped out were to convince himself. Catching Aura's and Mare's worried looks, Aints thought it would be bad to make them any more anxious. So he changed the topic. Okay, work with those things to scout the area. He was pointing at 4 lumps of flesh that were floating in the air, as if ready to go. They were pink, about 6.5 feet in diameter, and covered with countless cloudy eyes. It was as if someone had gouged eyeballs from different animals, and then sewn them together randomly to make these monsters. They were undead called eyeball corpses, created with upper-tier undead. Aints created as many eyeball corpses as the limit allowed each day. Because of their stealth abilities, they were the natural enemy of magic and skill users. The haze in their eyes wasn't just for decoration. Their vision was as penetrating as Aura the Adept Ranger's, or possibly even more so. Their combat ability was a bit low for their level, but this time he wanted them more for their detection skills than for direct combat. They were backup for Aura. Understood, but will they take my orders? That'll be no problem. They'll listen perfectly, or maybe make a magical mental link with them. Then you can be in charge, and it'll be easier to keep a safe watch. Yeah, I am faster if I go on my own, but there's no telling what kind of creatures are out there. Got it. Then we'll use a spell to upgrade Mare's stealth, and be lurking around this area. Sounds good. I am counting on you. Ain't smiled gently, although his face didn't move. Demiurge, the last to enter the room, crossed it with a quick step and sat down heavily in an open seat. He didn't even have to say anything. His uncharacteristically rough movements said plenty. So, let us hear it, shall we? Albedo was one of the other people at the table. He asked her sternly, with his eyes shut, why would you allow that? His tone was gentle, but that was just a thin layer on top. Everyone could feel the irritation beneath. When someone normally composed expresses emotion forcefully, there's a gap, and that makes it feel even more intense. But this wasn't even due to that. Demiurge was actually in a more severe mood than his colleagues had ever seen him in before. Albedo, however, whom he was hitting with emotions that had gone past hostile and into murderous, seemed no different than usual. It was what Lord Aints decided. We can ty. He cut off Albedo's sentence, like the blade of a guillotine.